Well, what's up everybody? Mike here, welcome back to the channel. So today is another project day, at least we're gonna start on a project. So as I mentioned in a video here previously, I am in dire need of getting a bulk feeder set up in my pig area. Right now I'm just using 3 or 4 feed pans at a time. That's getting extremely old really fast. Not to mention my wife or kids go in there trying to feed twice a day. It gets to the point where the pigs are right on top of you. We found a build plan. I think it's gonna be a quick and easy one. The plans for this thing are by a gentleman by the name of Jordan. Jordan, I appreciate it. I bought your plans, buddy. They look excellent. So we're gonna get started on this thing. Now, full transparency, I had a heck of a time trying to find an IBC tote for this thing, at least in my local area. You're supposed to be able to pick these things up everywhere. Problem I was having was everything I was finding in my area for an IBC tote was not food grade, or it had some really toxic stuff in it. So I held off till I found the container that I wanted. The other problem I was having was the plans call for a 330 gallon tank, and those are just not to be found in my area. So I went ahead and settled on a 275 gallon tank. Now the nice thing about that is, after looking through the instructions that Jordan's got here and provided, is that it looks like I could shorten up 3 of the pieces by 7 inches, because the difference between a 275 gallon tank and a 330 gallon tank is 7 inches in height, or basically 1 bar. So if you look here, this is a 275, it's got 5 crossbars going up. On a 330 gallon tank, you're looking at 6 or 7 inches, like I just said. It should be pretty easy to modify these plans and make them work for me. And in all honesty, I believe Jordan's running quite a few more pigs than I am as well. I think he said around 1,500 pounds of feed is what he rates this thing at. So I'll be slightly less than that, but I think it's gonna work out pretty good, because if I put 1,000 pounds of feed in this thing and I'm moving every 10 days or so. Right now my pigs are smaller, so they're still only going through about 100 pounds of feed, but I shouldn't have to fill this thing too many times. And I think I can time it perfectly to where every time I do a move, this feeder will be empty when I get done. So let's go ahead and dive into these plans. Like I said, he's got a pretty intuitive set of plans here. Feel free to check those out on his site if you're interested in this build and you like what I got going on here. This is all his design, but I'll leave a link down in the description if you decide you want to pick one of these up. Let's get in the garage, get cutting wood. Okay, so basically we got 90% of the pieces cut out here. So the next step I'm gonna go ahead and do is start throwing some of this together, see how it turns out. The first thing I wanna do is get some of this square, or at least close to square. I'm gonna drive some 3-inch screws in, like directions show. So basically we're just building a big box at the moment. I think that's really what drew me to this design the most anyways, was that it was so easy to build. I really like easy builds. What's nice about Jordan's plans on this are that, you know, it didn't overcomplicate anything, which was what I was looking for. I probably absolutely could have designed something myself that would have worked just fine. But when I see somebody out there that's already put the time and work into it, it's a good design. I guess I've always just kind of been of the mindset of support the guys that have already put the work in and gotten all the kinks worked out of a design. And then that way I don't have to go through and try to figure that out and do all the R&D like Jordan did on his plans. And I've always been more than happy to support another farm, especially when they got something good going. All right, next step, get this plywood on there. Right now, it just kind of looks like a stage for a midget. Let's go ahead and move on to the next task here. Next step here is to go ahead and put these outer boards on. So basically, we're just gonna make a perimeter all the way around this box, and that will essentially protect your base and your plywood from whether it be the pigs rubbing or pushing against it, but also if you're going out there with the pallet forks on the tractor, trying to lift this thing up, it'll give it a little bit of protection so you don't get into your plywood or your main box. And in theory, you could just replace the outer boards instead of the other pieces that are making this box up. All right, so moving on, ready for skids now. Let me get those up on the table here. Now, one thing I chose to do differently that he didn't show on his plans, just from experience that of things I've built in the past, when you move things around, it's nice to have a chamfered edge on each end where it digs into the dirt instead of having a straight edge. So I went ahead and cut a 45 on both ends of my skid. That's up to you if you decide you want to go that route to do that. Oh. All right, let's get this dude centered. So we want to be 3 inches from the edge. So basically what we're doing here is tacking this skid down just so where we can drill some holes and actually put some through like carriage bolts in this thing to actually really clamp it and hold it down. But this will get us to where we can actually move this thing around once we get our measurements dialed in. All right, we are moving right along here now. So next step, got everything locked in place with a couple screws, like I said. So the next step here is gonna be take a 1/2-inch drill bit. We're gonna put these 1/2-inch carriage bolts that are 5 inches long down through from the bottom up and secure them with the nuts on the top side. So let's try and get this knocked out real quick. That bit was just long enough. All right, there's one. Next. Next step is to put these uprights on, essentially hold the outside of the cradle. Basically, we're gonna put carriage bolts through this to secure it permanently, but for now, I'm just gonna throw a couple screws on this dude to get it locked in place, and then we'll come back and we'll actually lock it in with the carriage bolts permanently once I get that part done. I went ahead and assembled these angled pieces off camera real quick, just to get them knocked out, try to keep this video a little shorter. Let's see if we can get these uprights in place. One side down, one to go. So overall, this hasn't been too bad of a build. I think I'm gonna call it quits right here tonight once I get this put together. I've only really got like an hour, hour and a half, maybe 2 hours tops a night that I can work on this stuff. I try to make sure I'm, hanging out with the kids, doing what they want to do too. Obviously, I got the other farm chores that I got to take care of as well. That's okay though, I'll come back to it tomorrow night. I'll get the PVC cut down, I'll get it on here, and the cradle should be done tomorrow night. And then that means today is Thursday, tomorrow's Friday, so that means Saturday after my farmer's market, I should be able to come home and tear into that IBC tote, see if I can't get it cut up and ready to go as well. And then by Sunday, I'm hoping that this thing is ready to go out and pasture and we can actually send this thing off on its first run. And that will be amazing because I am sick of feed pans. But we do what we gotta do around here. One more screw and we're gonna call it an evening. There she is. So as you can see, not too bad. Pretty simple construction, easy to go together, providing I've done it all right up to this point. There's always a margin for error on everything. But this is where I'm gonna leave you for tonight. I'm gonna go and grab some dinner, and I will catch up with you guys tomorrow on this, and we'll keep going on this build. So it is not next day, it's more like 3 or 4 days later now. I'll be honest with you, I had a horrible migraine the last few days. It's everything I could do to get out here and work on this pig feeder. So I did get some work done. I apologize, I didn't do any filming. Let's go ahead and catch back up though. I'll show you where I'm at on this thing and what I've got accomplished, what I got to go. Let me get you turned around here. So as you can see, I've made some progress on this. It's the last time I left you guys. So I went ahead and got all my PVC set up on my corners, and that's just there so where the pigs rub against this feeder, they're rubbing on plastic, which is a replaceable item, versus rubbing on the wood, which would be a lot harder in theory to replace. Not impossible, but it just makes it a little easier when it comes to maintenance on this thing and keeping it looking nice. I did go ahead and get a rebar through on the two pieces of pipe that are act as the agitators, which you can see right down here. I just basically bought a 48-inch piece of rebar, that's a 1/2-inch piece, and then cut off about 5 inches, welded it to there to make a T, and then I ended up trimming off just a couple inches on the other end since I went ahead and made this shorter, like I showed you, because I bought the smaller tank. But that all worked out really good. Other end here, I'll show you. That is where your pins go right there to hold that bar in place. So, and then I did go ahead and get the hole cut down at the bottom of the tank here where the feed will drop down. That's as far as I've gotten. So basically, where I'm at now, I want to change this plan up to make it fit my needs just a little better than what Jordan's got going on with his. So on Jordan's plans, it shows having the feed hole from the top here, which is great if you're running an auger system like he is and dropping your feed from down. For me, this thing's actually taller than I am. I can get the bags of feed up here, but I don't really have to work that hard because I'm using 50-pound bags of feed when I'm loading this thing up. So I didn't want to have to reach up here. And number one, number two, I'm not sure my wife could actually get this accomplished. So I'm gonna go with a little bit different approach on this. I've got this little piece of rubber mat here that I came across, so I'm gonna use. My plan here is to basically cut out the face side of this instead of cutting out the top ridge point. That'll help me get these feed bags in here at a lower point. And I think that's gonna help my wife too, as she has to help me out. And then I'm gonna take this rubber mat and bolt it on the back side of this and drape it inside of the metal cage here. And then there'll just be an opening here. And then in theory, I'm hoping this will just lay flat. If I have to, I could put some holes in this rubber mat and basically just bungee strap it down to keep it sealed. I think that's going to be a pretty good seal. I shouldn't have any worries about water getting in this thing in that way, and it's going to accomplish getting that entry point a little lower. For me personally, with only doing 15 pigs, I don't see the need to have this thing completely filled to the top anyways. A little bit of a modification on my end. Let's go ahead and get started and see what we can get figured out. So the plan I've got here, I think, is to basically take out this section right here, which will bring my low point to here and not have to be way up here. So I'm going to take out this little cross section right here real fast, run my bladder out, point of no return. All right, so that's what I've got to work with there. All right, let's get this bladder back in here. So the next step I've got here is to cut this opening here, but I don't want to cut this opening all the way right here at the edges. What I think I want to do, which is kind of the instructions show as well, you want to leave a flap on the plastic, and what I want to be able to do is bring that flap up over and either bolt it to the metal or bolt it to the plastic itself. I'm not sure which way I'm going to go with that yet, but I want to flap this all directions the best I can to kind of support this off the metal, because this tank's got a lot of play to it. So when I cut this hole in here, I don't want that thing to sag in. So basically what I decided to do here, I'm going to cut this big flap like this for the moment, and then I'm going to trim this down to where I need it, because what I want is I want my rubber to be on the inside of the cage and run over the ridge and bolt in place, which will create a seal where water can't run down over into my feed. But then I want it to be on top of the cage where I can flap it up. So hopefully that'll all make sense here in just a second. I'm not sure if I explained that real well. Let me go ahead and get this trimmed out. I'm just using a utility blade on this to cut this. You could use a cutoff wheel as well, but I had pretty good luck with this when I trimmed the bottom out, so I'm just gonna go this route again. Biggest thing is don't get in a hurry and don't put too much pressure on it, and you shouldn't have to worry about slipping. Now let me see if I can do a better job of explaining this to you here real quick. So the theory here is to bring this down, I'll heat this up so it molds to this a little better, and I think I'll just bolt it to the crossbars right here, unless I can get it to, yeah, I think that's gonna be the best option. I'm just gonna bolt it right here to the crossbars. That'll hold in place just fine. So let me get this part knocked out real quick and I'll show you what the finished result looks like. Roughly 1 hour later, and a little bit of trial and error, I think I finally got this how I want it. It turned out just about how I had it in my head. Okay, so let's run through this. Here's my rubber mat here. It's on top of the cage, like I said I was gonna do. So in theory, I come over here, I flip that up. I got my hole here that I could put my bag up over, drop my bag in, empty it out. I rolled the plastic over the front edge here to give myself a nice smooth transition. I got it bolted here, bolted all the way around the frame, which kind of helps with basically if any water hits here. This has a little bit of a slight downward angle, so it should help shed water down unless I get some kind of weird raining sideways kind of event.
It's raining sideways!
Sounds rough, Ollie. Do you have an umbrella?
Had one!
Where is it?
Inside out, 2 miles away!
Take you around the back side now. On the back side here, I've got 4 bolts, just kind of, so it basically comes over the crest, 4 bolts down. I shouldn't have to worry about any rain getting in from this direction at all. It's gonna be the sideways rain, if anything, that I gotta worry about, in theory. So let me know what you guys think of that. This is my revision based off what Jordan originally did on the design. I think this is gonna work better for my setup and where I'm at for Jordan and his set and the way he had it designed. I'm sure it works more than fine for him. I just don't have an auger set up and I'm vertically challenged. The one last thing I am gonna do to this, to get this thing set up, and I don't have the parts here with me tonight, so I gotta figure out what I'm gonna use. I'm gonna probably put some kind of like a little eyelet right here instead of just putting a hole and pulling down on that to where it's eventually going to rip my rubber. I'm going to try to bolt that down with fender washers and a bolt and some kind of like hook that I can hook this and bungee strap it down just to keep this thing flapping in the wind or rolling up on top and then exposing my feed. Yeah, tell me what you guys think. This is what we're going to be using at least for the foreseeable future. I think it's going to work out pretty good. Excited to get this thing out in the field. And my plan is to try to get it out there tomorrow if time allows. If not, it'll probably be the day after that. I'll get the hardware that I need for this thing. I'll catch up with you guys when I get this thing out in the field. I'll show you how this thing works. We'll see how well the pigs adapt to it on the first day. Okay, fast forward where I left you a little bit ago. Took me a little thinking and head scratching to get this to a point where I felt like it was going to work. So let me show you what I did here. Okay, so when I last left off here, I had just got this hole in here. I rolled this flap down. I bolted this down like you see. And I've also got bolts here, one here, and a couple here. So I feel like this is gonna be pretty well held and I don't have to worry about this bladder inside of this cage collapsing. To address the flap, and this is revision 1, I'm sure I'm gonna have to revise something on this. Since this is my kind of my own design, this hasn't been tried and tested by anybody else to my knowledge. This is what I decided to do. Took some carriage bolts, strapped it up to a piece of metal stock that I have laying around, just a scrap piece of metal here. And then I went ahead and purchased these little magnets that you see right here. Now these are way smaller than I thought they were gonna be. They look bigger in the picture. That's my mistake for not looking at the size of them. But with that being said, these rare earth magnets actually have a pretty good hold to them. So this bar just kind of sits there and holds in place. And I mean, it doesn't take a lot of effort to get that off of there, but it does hold down. Plus the weight of this will help hold this flap. So we're gonna give this a shot, see how this works out. If you look here on the side, I don't have a lot of room for rain to get in. So unless the rain just really gets to blowing crazy, which it might, and I can address that at the time when the time comes if need be. That's really the only spot right here that I'm really worried about rain getting in at the moment. I might go ahead and just throw a screw right there just to kind of roll that down, and I think that would probably fix that problem. But this is where we're gonna leave her. Got everything good to go. Put a couple eyelets down here at the base so I can try to pull this thing by hand. I think I can do it. If not, I can always tie a chain to it and hook it to the bucket of my tractor. I've got a hook on the end of that thing, and we should be able to get this thing around no problem. The goal here is to be able to move this thing empty. So every time I do a pig move this, and try to time the feed right. I'm sure that's not going to always work perfect every single time, but that is the plan. So this thing's ready to make its maiden voyage out to the pasture. I'm gonna get this thing up on the pallet forks on the tractor, get this thing moved out to pasture, and we'll get the pigs moved tonight and see if we can get them used to using this feeder. Okay, pig feeder's out in the pasture. We got the pigs moved. Didn't take any video of moving the pigs. I've got a couple of videos already up of that. If you're interested in seeing those, go back a couple of videos, check those out. But we're gonna go ahead and start with 200 pounds of feed just to start. I'm a little paranoid about putting a full 1,000 pounds of feed in this thing, so I know it works for sure. I know it's a kind of a proven concept already. I'm just gonna put the 200 pounds in there for now, just to get us going. And I kind of want to see how this thing works and how they adapt. I want to make sure I've got it exactly where I want it, and I can still move it if I need to. Okay. So my ultimate goal here when I did this was to be able to set this up here like this, pull my string, and down she goes. Yeah, it looks like they already figured it out, so that's good. I'm getting attacked. And they're like, hey, there's feed in there. Hey, go around the other side, guys. Oh! Watch out, bud. Watch out, watch out, watch out. I don't want to ride a pig. That'd be my luck. Well, these guys get between my leg, take off with me on top. Kids have fun with that, but I don't necessarily want to take a ride. So I'd definitely say that thing can hold every bit of 1,000 pounds plus. We'll let this ride.
See how it holds up to stuff like that.
And that's exactly why I put plastic on the corners, which of course he's not rubbing on the corner. That wraps up the bulk pig feeder build. Hopefully that was somewhat helpful for you guys. I know I didn't go step by step, all in detail on how to build this thing, but in all honesty, the build plans that come with this were extremely easy to follow. This is a very easy build, so you shouldn't have too many questions on this thing, to be honest. The only things that I actually changed on those plans that you might want to follow along on, depending on what your build dictates and what you think might work best for you, is if you decide to go the route I did with filling the pig feeder, you've got that route you can go. I added the eyelets down to be able to pull this thing, and then I had to shorten those dimensions up because mine was a 275-gallon tank and not a 330-gallon tank. If you remember from the beginning of the video, that was about a 7-inch difference in the width on the cradle when you build that thing. So hopefully that was somewhat helpful to you guys. I know there wasn't a ton of footage that I could find on YouTube or anywhere else as far as this actual pig feeder in action, so I wanted to show what this looked like and how they go to it and actually feed from it. So you can see basically they can fit about 3 pigs on each side. They'll get used to taking turns on this thing. They'll kind of develop a pecking order. And they've got more feed available to them now than they ever have in the past with me just feeding with the feed pans that I was doing before. But hey, that's all I've got for you today, guys. I appreciate you taking time to watch. If you're interested in how I do the paddock moves, I've already got videos of that. You can go back and check, or I'll leave them right here at the end for you guys to click on. Other than that, you guys have a good day, and we'll catch you on the next one.